really many parts that make this an idea of one whole. I'd like to know if there is a God and what I have been chasing my whole life on earth.
You are separating the idea into this or that instead of this and that. There is one and there is all, and the one and the all are the same thing in different forms. There is one that becomes the all, that is the all, that experiences itself as the all, and there are the many things that together make up the one, but are each individually their own version, their own perspective of the one. Everything is made of God. There is nothing else to make anything from, and therefore God is everything. When people on your planet talk about the idea and the notion of God being omnipresent, you have to understand that it's not possible to be everywhere unless you're actually literally everything. Therefore, it is everything. It is every atom, every subatomic particle, every object, every molecule, everything. The space even in between the things that you think of as empty space, that is even made of God. There is nowhere where God, all that is, isn't. It is everything, it is everyone, it is everywhere, it is every when. All the things make it up, and it makes up all the things.
After one becomes enlightened, is there any steps along one's path of spiritual development, or is this awakening the last step?
Enlightenment never ends. There are always different levels to awareness and enlightenment and experiences of all that is. Even if someone imagines that they reach the so-called quote-unquote highest level of becoming one with all that is, becoming one with Source, there are still many versions of what it means to experience becoming one with Source. So even becoming one with Source is not the ending of enlightenment or awareness. It is infinite, goes on forever, never ends, there's always something else.
Okay, and can you please give examples of the idea of the illusion of power versus the power of the illusion? I would like to understand this concept better.
Many people on your planet fall under the illusion of power in the sense of thinking that their physical minds need to control things. They think of themselves as powerful when they find themselves able to manipulate certain events into a certain order that allows them to feel satisfied with what it is they insist on seeking. But the idea is to understand that physical reality is a projection of consciousness. In that context, an illusion doesn't mean it's not valid. It doesn't mean the experience is not real. But understanding that you are already creating your reality based on your belief systems, based on what you define as true for you, is being able to utilize the power of the illusion to your benefit by going with the flow, by not being in resistance, by not attempting to force things into shape, but by understanding how to allow them to automatically fall into place using your own natural current, your own natural control built into you, rather than attempting to artificially control things through the physical mind, which it's not designed to do. It is only designed to give you an experience of physical reality, not to control it. The idea is that the control is already built in to the choices that you made to experience, the challenges that you chose to experience in this lifetime to grow as a soul. So allowing the idea of the agreements you made to simply unfold in perfect timing and to respond to them in a positive way, acting on your passion, following the formula, going with the flow, not resisting the natural current that you are, is the way to use the power of the illusion that's already built into it, instead of falling under the illusion that you are powerful by exercising your physical mind to control everything, which is exactly the opposite of being in control.
And if we all have unique experiences of life on Earth, do we all see the same objects and colors in the same non-biased way? Do you, Bashar, see our Earth and objects' colors the same way we do? Or do you see everything as energy or some other state?
You may have a strong sense of agreement so that what you perceive in your reality is very, very similar to what someone else may be perceiving in their reality, and therefore have a common ground in a sense. But the idea is that you do not perceive exactly, precisely the same thing as everyone else. You all have a unique perspective. We see things also very differently than you do. We see multidimensionally far more than you do at this point in your evolution. And therefore, we see energy patterns. We can recognize those energy patterns as a type of language that allows us to understand how to perceive you and other beings in a very different way, on many different levels, simultaneously, even into the idea of perceiving parallel reality aspects of your being that you are connecting to, other civilizational vibrations that you are connecting to, other dimensional expressions of your greater being and your oversoul. So, yes, we see you as much bigger than you see yourselves in a variety of ways and extending into a variety of dimensional realities.
And when we use our imagination to interact with our hybrid children, what type of connection is actually happening? When this person is saying, when they play out the scenarios in their head, do they know that the hybrid children know they're doing this and come around? Can you explain this process a little more because it's not tangible in their reality?
The hybrid children are extremely telepathic, will often pick up on when you are thinking of them, will allow their imagination to vibrationally match the imaginary scenarios that you are picturing in your head for those that are vibrationally compatible with the realities that benefit them. They will experience what you are imagining. For those that are not necessarily relevant to them, they will not necessarily experience those portions of your imagination. They may send back a representation of what it is that would be more likely represented by them. They can reverse the telepathy in that sense and allow you, especially in dream time, to have a more representative imagination scenario that is more in alignment with their vibration. So that can work in both directions.
And you stated in a session that new children on Earth are coming through upgraded in a way that they will be able to remember the connection much faster.
Yes.
Please tell me the age range of these particular upgraded children.
Generally speaking, most of them are in their 20s at this point, although new ones are being born all the time, and therefore there's a large age range below 20 years of age. It doesn't mean that anyone over 20 isn't also hybridized in the new way, part of a new species. But the overall average age is somewhere in the 20s of those that have been hybridized to the point where they are a relatively new species. That doesn't mean that they're all in alignment. It simply means they all have different capacities than you used to have as a species. It still depends on what they choose to do with it. It still depends upon the themes that they chose to explore as to what they are capable of recognizing within themselves, but they do have a slight advantage of being capable of remembering more of who they are as a spirit connected to Source. How they interpret it will be based on the themes they chose to explore.
And could you clarify how it is that the Sasani are one of the products of the hybridization agenda, but their physical future selves seem to also be participating in it, such as yourself? I'm curious if the version of the hybridization agenda that you perceive as the origin of your society is the same as the one that you're participating in. For example, you perceive your physical self as being physically involved in the creation of your own society. Are there versions of it that were created without the involvement of physical future selves? In a similar fashion, does Willa perceive that Daryl has channeled her in the past of her timeline, which will mean the information of the 5 levels of mastery was being used on Earth before they even invented it?
You are confused by the science fiction convention of future and past and time travel. The idea is to understand us not so much literally as future selves, but as parallel reality interpretations, parallel reality counterparts that all exist simultaneously with your reality. So, yes, we are involved, but literally speaking, we are not coming from what you would consider to be your future in a linear sense. We coexist with you right now. So the idea is to drop the notion that we're in your future, because that's not how it works. The idea of the utilization of the term future selves is simply an application to represent that we are very much more advanced than you, which you usually chalk up to the idea of a future evolutionary being. But we exist right now. So the idea is we coexist with you and are participating with you. We are not coming from the literal future in the science fiction sense.
And also, the idea that the third entity is created when Daryl channels you or
Yes.
channels Bashar. And does that being have its own individuated soul?
Of a type, yes. We will not go into detail on this at this time because it can get a little complex. But of a type, yes.
Okay, and could you clarify the differences between the grays that you're referring to and the zeta reticuli?
As we have mentioned from time to time, there are many factions of grays. And the reason for this primarily is that when we talked about the idea of grays coming from a parallel version of Earth and other parallel realities, you must understand that there are a multitude of grays from different parallel realities that come through to different versions of Earth. So you have a mix of grays, in a sense, that come from different origin points, all interacting to some degree in what you consider to be your reality. So the grays that are connected to zeta reticuli are not exactly the same grays that are involved primarily in our creation, in the idea of the hybridization agenda. So it gets a little bit confusing because some can cross over from one agenda to another from time to time. But there are many factions of grays that come from many different parallel realities, all coexisting simultaneously in what you consider to be your timeline.
Okay, and is it accurate to say that extrasolar intelligent beings cannot develop the technology to reach Earth unless they have transcended aggressive world domination agendas and other fear based and greed based motivations? Does this imply that regardless of the circumstances on Earth, when they arrive, these beings will be altruistic ETs?
For the most part, yes. And again, remember that those that are engaged with you will set up a vibration that would make it less likely that anything that is vibrationally incompatible with your best interests would simply not find you. You would be invisible to them because of the vibrational state of those engaged with you that are operating on a much higher frequency.
Okay, and could you please explain the game hexes written about in the book Shards of the Shattered Mirror by Daryl?
Yes, there is a playing field made of different hexes. You might call them electronically activated. And the idea is that the players standing on hexes have to, in some way, psychically or telepathically or synchronistically determine the pattern of the changes in the colors of the hexes that change from phase to phase, from moment to moment, so that when you move from one hex to another, you instinctively land on a color that moves you forward and benefits you, as opposed to eliminating you from the game. So, for example, if you move from one hex to another while all the hexes are shifting and changing in color, when the hexes stop changing, stop shifting, and solidify into a particular color that was different than what they were before, or similar to what they were before, whatever color it is that you have now stood on, whatever color happens to be in the hex you have decided to go to determines your status in the game. So if you perhaps, for example, move to a hex that winds up solidifying into a gold hex, you may have won the game. If you stand on a hex that happens to solidify into a black hex, you may be eliminated from the game. Other colors may represent different status points in the game.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Um, are those who are attracted to your teachings a participant in the hybridization agenda?
They don't all have to be, but about 90% or above usually are.
Okay. And it seems as more of our consciousness expands, more is revealed. Does this mean that as a collective consciousness, if we match your frequency, we will be able to see you in physical form, or will we continue seeing only via our third eye?
You will ultimately see us in physical form if your vibrational rate comes closer to matching our frequency. In some sense, that is really what contact is all about. Because as we have said, those operating on a higher frequency have the qualities of spirit. And when exposed to those frequencies, your physical body may react to them as if you are dying. And that is where the fear comes from. But the idea is that as you raise your frequency and create less differentiation between physical and non-physical reality, you become more vibrationally compatible with our natural state and can allow your senses to begin to perceive us more solidly, more corporeally, more physically.
And this person asks, saying that they 2 days ago meditated and asked to travel with a UFO, and then read in the media the day after that a UFO was observed in the same area of Norway.
Yes,
Is there any link?
yes. That was the UFO that that person visited. Whether they remember fully or not is not the point. But they were given an opportunity to understand through the media story that what they had asked for had actually occurred. In time, they may remember. The memories may unfold.
The frequency of the consciousness of Willa's mentor to help accelerate you in your process of going from cryptic to nocturnal.
Good day. Hello. Thank you so much.
It is our passion and our pleasure. What would you like to discuss?
I'd love to know more about your personal art, if you're willing to share. Have in my head that you sculpt kind of with a liquid crystal, not quite, but kind of.
Yes.
So is there any like recent projects that would be exciting to share about?
Yes. We have created recently a large latticework sphere in which is contained an atmosphere that, when entered, allows individuals to experience different aspects of reality that reflects to them what they most need to understand to move forward on their path. It is like looking, in a sense, into a crystal ball, but it is like being inside the crystal ball.
That's so cool. Is that a collective idea, or how did that happen?
As you asked, I sculpted it. But it is connected telepathically to my entire civilization. So it is both a personal art project and expression and a collective one, because it represents what the collective would like to create, though it is done through individuals. This is done mostly as a tool of first contact for certain civilizations who need to see things in certain ways, who are already part of what you might call the interstellar alliance, but have to relate to interacting with us in a certain way. So we create this for them.
That's so cool. So can you expand on that in terms of how it relates to your ships? Because I think you said your ships also are created from the same type of crystalline matter. And it just makes me wonder, right? Like you mentioned that there would be no dashboard if we went in there because it's about your higher self and interacting
Yes,
with that.
it's a slightly different kind of material, though the principles are similar. But it represents the idea of a solidification or physicalization of our soul, of our higher mind. And that's why there is a telepathic connection. Because in a sense, the ship is us.
That's so cool. So what does like if I were able to go in there, what would I see? Like you don't eat, so you don't need a kitchen, you don't sleep, so you don't need a bed. So what determines like the size, the shape, the design of the inside of your ship?
Many different things. Primarily, it would seem like an unbroken, seamless form, either circular, maybe triangular, maybe hexagonal, in terms of the smaller ships. You might see a power pole from floor to ceiling in the center, but again, out of the same basic crystalline material that channels certain forms of energy through the ship. You might see a wall that can suddenly become transparent to function as a window, but again, all of this is done by mind. You might see certain things like chairs, if they protrude from the floor, if they are needed, but if not needed, will recess back into the floor or the walls. So the ship is very malleable and responsive to our needs by producing the things out of the crystalline material that are needed in the moment they are needed and disappearing when they are not.
So cool. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I'd like to know more about Anima and her role. Maybe if you want to share anything about like your relationship with her, what social engineering means.
Well, social engineering is basically a way of saying learning planetary management on all different levels, sociologically, politically, economically, spiritually, so on and so forth. So the social engineers will come after the first contact specialists like myself, and that's why we work closely with social engineers and why Anima is my colleague in that way. So after the idea of open contact, then the social engineers will be available to humanity to help you understand how to manage an entire planet more efficiently for the benefit of all. All of its
So,
resources, in other words.
so how might, if I'm still around when she's here, how might I play with her or interact with her in the future?
Well, again, it depends upon your particular penchant for understanding the idea of balance and understanding how there is the principle that there is enough for everyone if distributed properly. That the idea of borders and barriers no longer really exists. It's all about the idea of proportional disbursement, of understanding the value of the resources you have, how to manage them most efficiently, and how to understand that there is enough for all.
Wow, very cool. And then lastly, I have been following my highest excitement. It's been really fun. And I am in a business now where I use hypnotherapy to help people reveal and transform negative beliefs. It's very
All right.
exciting work for me. It's based on the idea that when we're little, we run in theta. And so we lay down a bunch of beliefs without a filter at that point. And so the work that we do brings the brain back to theta and reveals things that are no longer serving people anymore. Is there any information that you can give me that would make it more powerful for my clients so that we could tweak the process in any way that would make it more helpful or more effective?
Well, if they're willing to go into gamma first, that can help them unlock a few things that will make it easier to go into the theta level where the work can be done.
Oh. And can I guide that?
Yes, of course.
How would I do that?
Well, there are many different opportunities on your internet for understanding the vibration of gamma between 40 and 100 cycles per second. You can use different techniques, biofeedback, or even an auditory signal that is in the gamma range to put them in a certain state of association and information processing that is more efficient so that they can take that with them down into the theta state in order to process the information that you are directing their attention to.
The brain tells us where to go. Is
Yes.
that what's really happening?
Yes.
Okay.
But it depends on the state of the brain. And that way, by putting them in gamma first, which is the channeling state, It's like they are taking a submersible vehicle down into different levels where they will have an easier time of processing the information that they find there.
So that could be something as simple as listening to one of those frequency recordings before we start the process?
It can be. Different things will work for different people. You'll figure it out.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. I appreciate it all, and I appreciate you very much.
Our deep appreciation to you and unconditional love to you as well. Aveo.